Junk food dinner 341. Take a shit on the floor, it's time to get schlitzy. First, a man hacks into the biggest political and corporate secrets in Fateful Findings. Next, a cop investigates strange murders with supernatural results in The Wailing. Finally, an undead cop protects Los Angeles in Officer Down.
How could you have done this? How could you have committed suicide?
Welcome back to Junk Food Schlitzy. The first movie this week is Fateful Findings from 2013. This is a Neil Breen movie. Finally, the wait is over. After 13 years, Junk Food Dinner is doing a Neil Breen movie. This is a dude who, in certain circles of the internet, is like the new dude. He's like Tommy Wiseau, I suppose, except not self-aware and like not very well known. And the internet loves him for that. There's certain parts of the internet. And I've heard about him like a bit here and there and never watched any of his movies until about 2 months ago. I watched Fateful Findings because it's on Amazon Prime. And it's pretty much the greatest movie, I would say, of all time. There are no bad movies. I would say in a universe where also Neil Breen movies exist. Like, any movie you can think of that's like bad, like, Neil Breen's movies are way worse on a technical level, on an acting level, an editing level, like all those kinds of levels. But what makes them special is that he's really trying to say something super important. And I think that that's wherein lies the beauty. This movie, Neil Breen plays a guy who, as a young kid, him and his friend, a girl, find magic treasure in the woods that releases a ghost or something. And then flash forward years later, he's a successful writer who constantly gets phone calls about deadlines. And he is so successful at writing that he has also decided to hack into the world's most secret government and corporate secrets to reveal information that will shock the world.
It's that classic setup where he desperately wants to be a computer scientist, but oh my God, he's been stuck being a novelist. And can't everybody relate to that? Like, it's so hard to get work in the computer field, but everybody wants to pay a novelist in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, he's got like 5 laptops, so he can multitask.
Well, yeah, and 10 copies of that same book on his desk, too.
Yeah, he can do both jobs, considering how many laptops he has. Although by the end of the movie, he has significantly less because he's
running low.
Yeah, he keeps spilling coffee on them and knocking them over for no reason.
Well, maybe to have sex. That's one reason he knocks them off the table.
Yeah, there is the scene where he has sex, and like we've all seen that scene in a movie where, like, you know, 2 people go to have sex, and then with one swift arm push, everything on a desk flies off. But in this movie, he picks up every piece of thing that's on the desk individually and throws it down hard. He picks up one laptop and throws it down. He picks up a stack of papers, throws it down. Another stack of papers, throws that in the air, picks up another laptop, throws it down. It's a very romantic scene. So I don't know. That's kind of the entire plot. Like, there is no plot or story in this movie. Well, I mean, I guess there is. Like, at one point, Neil Breen meets back up with this girl that he found the treasure with as a girl, or as a young boy. And his wife is so distraught about it that she kills herself. And then, like, the new girl moves in immediately, and then he starts using astral projection. And then his neighbors all start killing themselves and getting shot. It's bizarre. Let's see. I got some notes. There's a great car accident at the beginning of this movie that, the way that it's hard to know where to begin with this movie. But the way that all the dialogue works in this movie is that, like, I don't know if any 2 people were ever on quote unquote set at like together at any time, because anytime somebody's talking, like you get a close up of their face and then like that's it. So there's this car accident and then you get all these close ups of people's faces who are probably not all together at the same time saying things about the car accident. Like, she hit him. I'm here. I'm a witness and things like that. A mysterious person shows up and gives Neil Breen some sort of ghost juice, and he recovers from his car accident, like almost instantly. And then he walks home from the hospital, like with like a bunch of weird gauze on his face, like just completely covered in blood. And while wearing this gauze on his face and completely covered with blood, he has a romantic sexual encounter with his wife in the shower. That's very bizarre. There's one of the greatest scenes in movie history is the scene where Neil Breen is in pain because he has headaches or something and refuses to take medicine for it or something. And so he passes out and like he's passed out at his computer and he like tries to take a sip from his coffee, I guess while he's still asleep or something. And he just ends up knocking the coffee over onto his face and his laptop and moaning pathetically.
I think we have a clip of that.
It's wonderful. At one point, like his friend who lives across the street, who ends up getting killed by his wife, who doesn't want to have sex with him, or something. Like they're talking at dinner, and he says to Neil Breen, like, "Oh, you really got better very quickly. You know, that's weird." And Neil Breen says, "I have great genes, but I'm still in pain." It's a funny thing to say. Oh my God. All right. So the dialogue in this movie works. I don't know if it's like a result of bad editing. Like if everybody just said all of their lines that were on the page, like in one foul, like in one swoop. And then it was like up to the editors to kind of cut them together or whatever. But like everybody who has a line of dialogue in this movie will say their dialogue and then they'll say it again, like 3 or 4 different times, like slightly different.
Yeah.
And it's very weird. Like there's this suicide scene and Neil Breen finds the dude and he's like, "I cannot believe you killed yourself. I cannot believe you killed yourself. I cannot believe
I can't believe you committed suicide. I cannot believe you committed suicide. How could you have done this? How could you have committed suicide?"
And that's how all of the dialogue in this entire movie goes. It's very inept, and like there are scenes where like 2 people will be fighting, and then you think that there's like some sort of resolution. Like Neil Breen will say, "You have to forgive me. You have to forgive me." And then you think and then like they'll hold hands, and then you think that it's resolved. And then it smash cuts to like another scene in a different room where they're still fighting about the same thing. And like that'll happen a bunch of times. Every once in a while, he vaguely just tells people that he's hacked into the secrets of the government and corporation, blah, blah, blahs. And you think it's like not going anywhere. And then in the last 15 or the last like 10 minutes of this movie, Neil Breen stands up, spoiler alert, stands up in front of a green screen of like, the Capitol building or something. And he tells everybody.
A green screen.
A yellow screen?
A Breen screen.
Oh, okay. A Breen screen. And he tells everybody he has all the secrets of the government and corruption and corporations, but he doesn't say what any of them are. At one point he says, "What I've found will shock you," and then applause. After he says, "I've found something that will shock you to your core," and then like all the journalists there like clap for him. And then all these people who are there, who I guess are supposed to be the heads of corporations and congressmen and politicians, they all start killing themselves.
Yeah, dude, that ending, that is the icing on the cake for this movie.
Well, they had to justify the money that they spent on that filter song.
I don't understand your reference again.
You know that "Hey Man, Nice Shot," which was about politicians shooting themselves in the face on TV.
Oh, now I get it. This movie has the best ending of all time. Like, it's people shooting themselves right there, like in front of these journalists, and Neil Breen smiling politely.
Well, yeah, and it's so surreal because it's like all these corrupt business people and politicians are all just standing there like applauding Neil Breen as he makes the speech, and then they're like, yeah, I mean, the only thing I can do now is kill myself, and they just shoot themselves in front of everybody.
Yeah, nobody tries to stop them. Nobody's shocked. Nobody's even upset about it.
No one reacts at all to it.
Yeah.
Even though they're doing it like right there. And one guy does it later. One guy, he's like says, I'm sorry that I took advantage of everybody. And then they cut to him in a car and he swallows 2 pills and then just immediately passes out onto the steering wheel.
Well, yeah, no, there's a whole bunch of them that have like at home suicides. There's like the lady that, turns on her car in the garage. There's the guy that like slits his wrists in the bathtub.
Oh, yeah.
But then, some of them just shoot themselves right in front of everybody.
Yeah, it's wild. Why would they have even brought a gun?
Some fateful findings,
He did find fateful findings. We never find out what these secrets are, by the way. I don't know. There's like, this movie's absurd. There's like a neighbor girl who like really wants to have sex with Neil Breen for some reason. And he like just makes her promise she'll never go to his house again. Like, it's weird. Like this movie.
It's supposed to be like 15, right?
I think so. Yeah. I don't know. This movie is ineptly made. It's beautiful. I love it. I love every second of it. He's got some more movies that I hope that we talk about one day. I'm worried that you guys will hate this, but it seems like maybe you like it. So what do you think about this movie?
Well, I didn't know anything about this Neil Breen feller. Pretty much the only thing I knew about it was you sent me like a link to a Tumblr or something, and I saw this very short clip, and I think it was him eating a salad or something like that. And, I was like, all right, this looks ridiculous, but, I didn't really know what else to think about this guy, which, I mean, goes to show you how little attention I pay, because like you said, Neil Breen has some fans. Like they're all over the internet. And after watching this, I was, reading up on him a little bit, and he's an interesting character for sure. I gotta be honest, like, first off, I'm not fully sure, even after watching this movie, whether or not this type of movie even counts, like after The Room and Birdemic and movies like that. Like, and I think we talked about this a little bit when we reviewed Birdemic 2 like 100 years ago on the show, but these type of weird movies that are like just really bad in terms of production value, like they can't really happen in a vacuum anymore. And like, it's certain that he knew what he was doing when he made this. Like, I don't think he had any illusions that he was creating this great film. And maybe the genesis of it is that he had a message that he wanted to state, but I don't think that he's fooling even himself about the quality of this movie. So I that does kind of, I think, hamper a little bit of the enjoyment of it, but only a little bit, because despite me thinking that I knew what this is, and despite me thinking like, it's going to be another Birdemic, I didn't really know what it was, and it did surprise me. So it's a movie that I think some people will definitely hate just based on what it is, that it's kind of a deliberately bad movie. But I think if you roll with it, there's plenty here to enjoy. And most of that is just Neil himself. Like, and like, I knew that he wasn't going to be a great actor just based on that Tumblr clip that I saw. But I mean, he seems like a nice guy, but acting is not his forte. And you can tell because like the first 30 minutes of this movie, like he doesn't have to do anything. Like he's in a hospital bed for like the first act of this movie, and doesn't really have to do anything until that scene where he gets angry at his wife for taking pills and dumps him down the toilet and has that weird little tirade. And then you realize, okay, well, this guy can't act at all. But, like I said, he's likable. So, I mean, I hope that he enjoys the ironic appreciation that he's getting on the internet. I did have some slight anxiety about that while watching this movie, like, because like he just seems like so nice. Like he seems like the type of guy that I would want to hang out with. Like he's kind of got like a Stephen Wright vibe, like seems like just a swell dude. I love the way that he eats that salad. He does this emphatic, like, aw, heck, like wave of his arms down by his side whenever something doesn't go his way. Like he does like this Charlie Brown move where he's like, aw, shucks. And I thought that was awesome. Like I've never seen like a human adult do that. I do think that there is kind of like a semi-gross, like Jim Wynorski wish fulfillment thing going on here, where he's writing in a lot of scenes where he's just hugging oiled up young women who are nude, which don't connect to the plot in any way. I mean, not that anything in this connects to the plot, but I'm not fully convinced that this 90 minutes for him wasn't just all about that one day of shooting where he got to hug that naked girl.
Of course, that's what this whole movie is. I mean, not just to hug the naked girl, but to like, you know, pretend like he's a movie star.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of creepy and for him, like giving the political speeches and stuff like that. I'm like, all right, fine. Like, yeah, that's fun. It's a little creepy when he's just, I don't know, fondling these women that are like 30 years younger than him. But, you know, get money, Neil. You know, I see what you're up to. I like the part where he pleads with that one girl, Leah, to pick up the phone. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what is he? He thinks that voicemail works like an answering machine. And then they cut to the house and no, she does have an answering machine. So he's still living in that world where that's a valid plot device where you can be like, pick up the phone. Felt like an 80s movie. You know, the continuity in this is all over the place and it gets kind of surreal and weird. Those first few minutes that are set 40 years in the past look exactly like present day. Like, I'm pretty sure that there's modern cars all over the place, which is really bizarre.
He and that girl are supposed to be basically the same age as kids. And then when they quote unquote grow up, he's somehow aged like, you know, 20 years ahead of her.
Yeah. That was weird. And there's all these weird continuity jumps where like objects on screen will jump weirdly. Like it'll be a thing where he'll be like, oh, let me get that book off the desk. And then they'll cut to him just holding the book. And like, you don't get the action of him picking up the book. And there wasn't enough time that elapsed for him to actually pick up the book. So it feels kind of like a video game or something where it's like, let me take this item out of my inventory. And it's, I don't know, it's very weird and jarring. I loved all the Sony laptops. I love him throwing them on the carpet over and over again. I think he may have been applying for a job to direct that kids dropping fruit plates video on YouTube. I think that's what that might have been about, but I'm not fully sure. I love that his character is so passionate about computer science and hacking that he's going to expose national and international corruption. I just love the phrase national and international corruption, which he says over and over again. There's a scene where he goes to a psychoanalyst whose jacket changes color in the middle of the scene, like in between shots. Was that supposed to be a separate character? Or did they just get that completely? Do you know the scene I'm talking about when he goes to the psychiatrist and the jacket changes from black to light blue?
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. I was in the scenes with the psychiatrist. I was too worried about the fact that the psychiatrist's office is just two folding chairs right next to each other.
Yeah. It was so weird. And it's like in a scene with only two people on screen, and you get like one of their costumes completely wrong. I don't know. It's like all this weird stuff where I feel like, well, it would be hard to make a mistake that big. So I do feel like some of this stuff feels a little bit deliberate. And I feel at times like he's kind of just going for that Birdemic, which hindered it a little bit for me. I do like the boring aesthetic of this movie. I'm actually somebody that really gets into like earnestly boring aesthetics, you know, like kind of like how some weirdos get like an ASMR tingle out of like boring audio. Mm-hmm. I just like to look at boring environments, and like the visuals in this movie of like a bad handheld camera in a poorly decorated hospital with folding chairs and then office carpet, which by the way, if you're in like a treatment room in a hospital, I'm pretty sure that they don't have like office carpets on the floor, but I liked it. I mean, I like that Lifetime movie music vibe. Actually kind of reminded me a lot of this web series that came out a few years ago called Catherine, starring comedian Jenny Slate, which was a similar type of thing where it's like very deliberately boring characters are talking in a very wooden fashion directly at camera. In that case, like it was made by comedians and they knew what they were doing. And in this case, I feel like he, even though he's not a comedian, he might have known what he was doing here. But it works. I mean, it's such a fun, weird aesthetic where it's like weirdly normal, but also like weirdly artificial. Like, who the hell would have that many Sony Vaio laptops? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But then it's also like the most boring laptop that he could have chosen. So I like it. I mean, I don't know why I like this movie, but I do like it. I think part of the interest in this movie is just like the do-it-yourself feeling that you can get while watching this. Like I legitimately did feel like while watching this, like, fuck, man, I gotta make a movie. Like if this guy is making not only one movie, but he's made multiple movies, and people are buying these movies and watching these, like, I could make a better movie. I know that I could make a better movie than this. So I got to get off my ass and do something with my life. So if I ever do make a movie, I'm going to officially thank Neil Breen for that. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see this movie again with the right crowd. Again, I did watch this alone at home at like 3 a.m. Not probably the right environment for it. Although I think with the wrong crowd, I would get really pissed. Like if people were like shitting on Neil Breen in front of me, like I just... The guy seems like such a sweetheart that I think I get pretty bummed on that. So, weird movie. Definitely a very jarring watch to see this movie, like after a week of watching John Cassavetes movies at the New Beverly, which are, like the most amazingly well acted films ever created. To see like, this bunch of losers, trying to act their way out of a paper bag and failing. It was very strange. But I'm glad that I did it. I mean, I would like to see some kind of documentary about his process. Like, I would love to see an independent party do a study on Neil Breen. I think a college thesis could be written about this guy. Because I'm curious. I'm honestly curious about, is this guy for real? And to what extent? And, what's next? I can't think of a single movie that we've done on JFD that's left me this divided. Like usually I feel pretty conclusive about a movie one way or the other, or maybe just I won't feel anything. But I feel like a lot of simultaneous love and hate for this movie, which makes me feel very strange, to be honest. So I say watch it for yourself and make up your own mind. I might be even more into this after seeing more of his films and kind of getting a feeling for who he is and what he's trying to do here. But for whatever reason, man, I saw this last night and I couldn't stop thinking about this movie all day long, for real. Like, I think it does capture, some kind of sense about my own fears about ego and image and like how I want to be represented in the world. Yeah, like that feeling of stage fright that I had on behalf of Neil Breen was not something that I expected. But the guy really puts himself out there, man. Like he's out there on camera, and even if he's not a good actor, even if he's not making a great movie, he's on screen and he's open and vulnerable, and I think that's commendable. I hope that people don't turn him into kind of like a Chocolate Rain scenario or something like that, where he's just this lovable internet loser that we all joke about and is forgotten because, he seems like a sweetheart. And by the way, there was a cool cow skull in the background of a hiking scene. So I liked this. I thought it was cool.
I had never heard of this Breen machine either. I feel like I had heard it mentioned, and then when watching this, I had definitely seen a YouTube clip of the suicide scene, just like online. Someone had linked to it, so I was a little aware, but not really. Didn't know him by name, didn't know his whole deal. I mean, like Sean, I want to believe, and I really hope, and it seems like he's genuine. Like, I don't think there's really any way he could be, certainly not like from a comedic standpoint, trying to make a bad movie, or even, I don't know, it just seems too earnest and genuine. It feels like a guy that has money. I guess he's some sort of like real estate guy in Las Vegas. And yeah,
he's an architect. I need to clear that up because at the start of every interview he's given in the past year, people have been like, "Oh, so I hear that you're into real estate," and he's like, "No, I'm not a real estate agent. I'm an architect." That was a misprint. I guess he at one point in time had a real estate license.
Okay, fair enough. So, but yeah, I mean, so he's got some money, and he's probably, just one of these guys that, maybe doesn't have kids or anything, just has some money, and he's like, I've always wanted to make a movie. And he just tried his hand at it. And despite not knowing anybody that has ever done anything with movies, he's just like, let's just give this a shot. I can get some fairly decent cameras. I've got a cool house. We can probably wrangle up some decent cars and some hot ladies that'll want to be in this movie. And despite the fact that I really don't know how to structure a movie, structure dialogue, structure a scene, set up a camera, I mean, it really does feel like somebody that has no technical acumen whatsoever when it comes to making a movie. I mean, it almost feels like a lot of the dialogue is written by somebody that English is like a second language, or I had to look to see if Neil Breen was in fact like American, because I was like, maybe he's foreign in some way, and like, because some of this dialogue, it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel even the slightest bit natural, and so that's where I'm almost like, you almost would have to try to make it this inept. But
so you think he might be a shapeshifter then?
I don't know. I mean, it's so hard to nail down, because like you said, Sean, I mean, he seems nice and earnest, and like he wants this to be good, but then, like I said, it's so bad you cannot believe that someone could put this together and not be like, we could have done, just by trial and error, done better. But there's definitely some hilarious stuff in this, just for that, just from dialogue, you're just laughing because of it, how unnatural and how weird it is. Some other stuff that you guys didn't mention, I love the plaster cast mask that he wears after his car accident, and that car accident at the beginning of the movie where he gets hit by that car is fucking hilarious. And then there's just a lot of weird use of CG, and it's just all over the place.
You like that smoke effect?
Yeah.
It's kind of a hard movie to even talk about, because it's like everything's so inept that there's really no starting point. Like, usually it's like, oh, we watched this horror movie, the acting was so bad, you wouldn't believe it, or the monster looked so stupid, you wouldn't believe it. But here it's like every element of it fails miserably, aside from the spirit. Like, aside from the spirit and the fact that this guy wants to tell this story, that he thinks it's important. Those things are great successes, which makes the technical failings of it all the much more. But yeah, it's like, it's hard to even kind of like goof on, because it's like you could goof on every shot, every line of dialogue, like every aspect of it. It's hard to talk about, kind of.
It's almost like one of those regional like furniture store commercials or something that you would see on TV for like a mattress store or something, where it's like, yeah, these are people that don't make movies trying to make a movie, and it like the timing is off. Like it almost doesn't feel like a movie. Like it's as close that you can get to making a movie and have it still maybe not be a movie. It's so weird.
Mm-hmm. And then also like you were saying, Kevin, like the fact that he has really nice houses and like really nice cars in this movie, like also adds to it, because, doing the show, like we're used to watching, just like shitty dudes with their shitty, like bottom of the line VHS recorder in their basement make these really ugly movies. But like, this is like, there's a lot of high production things in this shitty movie. Like it almost looks good because of the nice things in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely feels like the guy had some money to burn. And yeah,
although I think the counter argument there is like, we talk a lot on the show about how like it's getting cheaper and cheaper these days to make a movie, and maybe that's a good thing. And maybe it's great that the access to technology is allowing people to make their own movie. And then you see something like this and you're like, well, maybe it's too easy to make a movie.
Yeah, no, this is great though. I mean, just imagine if like, every goofball with, a few bucks and a dream could make some crazy movie like this. Who knows how many Fateful Findings we've been missing out because someone didn't have the resources or the time. So who knows? Maybe it'll, this ease of making a movie, we'll get some weird outsider movies that we never would have gotten otherwise. And yeah, I think this is like, one of those ones. I mean, yeah, it's, I think it would be fun to see with a group of people for sure. Just like The Room or Birdemic or one of these, it definitely can fill that spot of like, a fun laugh along with how stupid and goofy this is, kind of movie. But I think even so, I think you can enjoy this, on your own. But yeah, probably with some friends is probably the best way to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And that ending, if it wouldn't have had that ending, it wouldn't have left near the impression, because it's just like everything up to it, like, like you said, is kind of this wish fulfillment thing where this guy, he's like, yeah, I'd be cool if I was like a hacker, but also like a novelist, and there's just like hot chicks around all the time, and like I can survive a car crash, and like kind of this wish fulfillment stuff. Then it's like, and then at the end, I'm going to expose all those fucking corrupt politicians and businessmen, and they're just going to kill themselves, and that's going to be the end of the movie. It's like, whoa, Breen, that's like a weird turn.
Yeah. So there is an interview and you can Google this. I don't remember what site it was on, but I was reading it, and he's talking about like the political messages in this movie. And he even goes as far to say in this interview, he's like, I'm not suggesting that anybody assassinate our leaders, but maybe it's something we could all consider.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
it was weird and dark.
He's a little bit ahead of his time in that. The last 2 weeks, that's all I've been hearing on the internet. So I think he's got a message that could reach the kids now. Yeah, he's beautiful. I think we'll probably dive into more of his movies. Double Down, I haven't watched, but I think that the plot is exactly the same as this movie, aside from the fact that in that Neil Breen's character like lives in the desert for some reason, like in a shack. So that sounds good to me. Yeah, so that's Neil Breen's Fateful Findings, the greatest movie ever made. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about Bob Marley.
Thanks for visiting the JFD video store. We hope you enjoyed our burning hot takes on this week's selected movie. Check us out on iTunes or junkfooddinner.com for full episodes. The audio version contains 3 full-length reviews per week, topical news segments, and listener feedback. Great for long commutes, exercise, or surviving the impending apocalypse. Thanks to Chuck Linnington for the on-screen artwork. Email jfdpodcast@gmail.com or check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, or whatever else is going on. We're probably there and wanna hear from you. Until next time, keep washing them dishes.
That's what I think, that's what I feel, and if you don't like me, you can sue me.